everyone, it's Norm here from Tested at Maker Faire 2023, and Adam Woodworth is here. Adam, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Oh my God, it's been a couple of years.
Yeah.
Last time, you introduced me to miniature land speed.
Yeah, you rode around. You got to ride around the land speeder.
And of course, you have your large-scale
Lego helicopter.
helicopters. Yeah. I've been following you on Instagram, of course, where you've been sharing your personal builds.
Yeah.
These are RC multi-rotor aircraft that are obviously pop culture inspired.
Yeah. So it's basically like I was like deep into sci-fi as a kid, like most of us.
Yeah.
And all the things that I would like swoosh around my room, I wanted to like be able to make them actually fly. So it's all sorts of pop culture pieces, all sorts of ships that I liked as a kid. And I just like the challenge of like, can you make the weird shape fly?
And I see a lot of weird shapes here. A lot of great, iconic sci-fi shapes. Let's talk about more simplistic shapes first.
Yeah.
So something like an X-Wing or a TIE fighter.
Yeah.
There's a lot of symmetry.
Yeah.
Right.
Usually if they sort of look the same on both sides, it's a lot easier. I usually start with this is like a ready to fly off the shelf RC airplane.
Mm-hmm.
It's got 2 brushless motors and then 2 little servos in the back. So these work as what's called elevons. So that does pitch and roll for the aircraft. And there's a little controller board in there that runs the motors, and then it stabilizes an attitude. So it like tries to hold it level.
Yep.
A lot of the sort of, most of these builds all use the same electronics out of this. And the sort of easiest place to start is like, if you can kind of put all the items in relatively the same space and it's got just about the same amount of wing, it sort of works. So like the tie here is almost about the same size. Right. This is actually a really old Air Hogs kit that I kit bash or cut it all apart, put in the motors, put in the servos. So this is, they're essentially like the same airplane, just one looks much different.
And once that's grafted on, I know you have your
I got the
your
little
extra fleet that's flying with its wingmen. Does it just fly, or is it?
A lot of it is about can you get it to balance in the right spot? So like with airplanes, like the center of gravity is one of the most important things. So can you get it to balance in the right spot? And then rather than tuning through the electronics, I'll just change the size of the surfaces. So if it's like a little oscillatory in pitch, I'll shrink the surface a little bit or change the linkage geometry. But most of the stuff, try to pull the battery on things like X-Wings, like they have a lot of area in front of where they balance, so they're really unstable in yaw. So one of the challenges there is like, how do you get it far enough forward to balance, but far enough aft so that like you still have an effective rudder. So there's everything in aviation is a balance, and so you move one thing in one direction and you got to change something else.
Well, thankfully, like something like the Batwing, very comparable also.
Yeah, this is again sort of similar layout, so same motors, same servos. This one I actually vacuum formed off of like an old AMT plastic kit. So this is like super thin PETG. And then just foam board for the surfaces. But this one,
looks beautiful.
It's about the same size, lines up pretty well, and it's been surprising to me, sort of how many different shapes just sort of work. But if you can get the balance of get the center of gravity in the right spot, get the motors in the right place, and have enough stuff that looks like a wing, it usually works.
And that's a lot of trial and error, a lot of just manual kit bashing. At which point do you then go to the computer and count things out?
I sort of know how to make planes because I've made a lot of bad planes. It's a process of trial and error. But once I get a general shape working, I'll go back and do the CAD work for it. So I'll do like a 2D drawing with all the panel lines, all the cutouts, and then throw it on a laser, do the cuts, and then I'll etch in all the surface detail. So this is like, the fastest pass you can do at the lowest power. And when you go back and paint wash that, it fills in all the panel lines like it would on a plastic model.
Totally.
So the detailing becomes much easier than if I was airbrushing everything. And then, you go back and you do the classic, like, where's your eye drawn to? type of thing and dirty it up and make it look like it lived in universe.
And then for changing the flight characteristic, are you also using that same CAD model and to shift around the weights?
The prototypes of these end up looking like pretty ugly. Like they'll be taped together and there'll be an extra piece of foam taped on over here. And then when I go back into CAD, it's like, how do I incorporate those changes into the finalized design? So, and then, pretty much all of these are, materials you can go get at the local craft store. So just EPS foam board for most of the plane. And, they're really light. So this is, that's probably about 50 grams with the battery.
Yeah, and this asymmetry, I mean.
Yeah, that one's extra asymmetric because it has a broken prop. But so the plane balances in the middle here. Mm-hmm. And with the really asymmetric ones, I'll start with just a glider, like when you get the one for 25 cents at the convenience store. Build it out of foam. And start cutting in the surfaces, adding bits of clay, trying to get it to balance right, and just tossing it across the garage. And once you can get it to sort of fly level across the garage, you go back and put a pin through, like the balance point on this one's right there. Oh. And then you can see the surfaces here are, they generate the same moment. So like this one is, this one's closer, so it's a little bit smaller in total area than this one. And so it's like when you pull up, these are two very different surfaces. You don't want
very different. Oh my God, the width of this and that, they're just completely different shapes.
So you don't want it to like couple, roll, and pitch.
Right. They're even
staggered.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's one of the interesting things on airplanes. It doesn't actually, as long as they're both behind the center of gravity, they
don't
act
need
like
to be
elevators.
on the same line. Oh wow.
But yeah, all of these things are little tweaks and moving stuff around.
Because you're balancing, trying to retain as much of the original form.
Yeah, you want it to sort of look recognizable. You don't want to have to add like clear fins and other stuff like that.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just can't get it to work. So this Eagle 5 I built.
God. Wow.
This is probably like a 10-year-old model. And when I originally built it, I wanted to make it I wanted the shape to fly. And you've got all this area up front and no vertical area in the back, so it wants to spin around. So I had I made big jet exhausts at the back, and it flew, but it looked kind of silly. So I eventually sort of compromised and added another clear lifting surface up front. So when it was just a flying wing, it would balance like back here, and with the canard, it balances more about here.
Yeah. And
so that surface provides extra lift and helps you trim out. And then you can see there's a couple little clear fins in the back. Yeah. So it's still, on the table, it doesn't quite look right, but when it's flying around, it looks the part. So, and this is all the same techniques of laser etch the panel lines, and then go back with a paint wash, and you can make it look like a.
It's effective, especially on this super light foam board. Yeah. Okay. You also have a quadcopter here, tiniest little quadcopter with Lola.
Yeah, that's from the Obi-Wan show. So that started as. The second I saw the show, I was like, I need to make one of these, see it fly. This started as one of the little toys you just go buy. And I turned this into a puck to do vacuum forming around. So, you fill in the holes, you take it apart so you don't have undercuts and things like that. And then vacuum form the shell. Yep. And then go back and do all the paint work on it. Oh. So you go from a part that is way too heavy to fly to something that's the same size shape, but light enough to make it work.
All that surface detail as well.
And then this has off-the-shelf quad rotor controller, tiny little brushless motors on little props. And then the interesting thing here is it can only fly with the ears up. So I put the ears on another little set of controls so you can kind of animate it. I put the voice box out of the toy into the remote so you can get the tunes. Yeah. But it draws air in through the backside. So it'll hover like this, and then if you close the ears, it'll start to drop.
Animating it.
It adds some personality to it. But this one I ended up incorporating into a Halloween costume for the family. So it was I got a 6-year-old who was very into it.
Oh, of course. All right, we got to wrap up talking about
The toaster. Yes. So I think the toaster is probably one of the favorite things I've built, and it's one of the more simple ones. So everybody, well, lots of us remember the classic
fewer every year.
The classic screensaver of the flying toasters.
Yes, of course.
Back when you bought a CD that had screensavers on it, but you know, I just like weird flying stuff, and I was like, what's weirder than making the flying toaster actually fly? So this is probably, it looks more like what the prototypes end up looking like. So this is just, I hand cut everything, you know, sort of got the shapes generally right. And I was expecting it to take a lot of trial and error. Like, oh, I'll make this one and I'll make it quick, and then I'll go back and tweak things, and then I'll make it all look nice. And it just worked. Like somehow it just worked. But if you go back to the sort of simpler planes, it's about the same area. It balances up here, so this all acts like a rudder, and you know, while it's really boxy, it's still really light. So put together the flying toaster, and then it wouldn't be complete without toast. So made some very light foam toast, and you can load it up on top, and you do a nice loop, the toast ejects. Nice. And folks have challenged me to try to catch it again, but I don't think that's possible. But this is probably my favorite airplane I've got.
It is adorable. Oh, and I can't believe this is just a hand-built one.
Yeah, just
your first prototype has a lovely characteristic when, you know, kind of glides and lifts, and
it's you know, it's sort of indicative of the whole process. Like sometimes it just works, and sometimes it's a struggle, but at the end of the day, the coolest part is just sort of seeing that image of it flying around. And you know, I usually put different audio over the Instagram videos, but if I didn't, you'd hear me laughing in the background of getting to see the cool planes fly.
What's your white whale? What's the one the design that you want to make?
So I really want to do a TIE Interceptor. That's always been my favorite ship.
Yep.
It's really challenging because there's not really wing on it. Like it's got a little bit more wing than just a TIE fighter because they're bent a little bit, but it's not. It's a real challenge.
A lot of negative space as well.
Yeah, a lot of empty space. This was sort of my approach to it. So this is TIE Defender, and while it from all these angles doesn't really look like it might have a plane, if you look at it straight on top, there's sort of everything lines up so that there's enough surface area to make it work. But that's sort of the next project is, can I make a real TIE Interceptor? And then, you know, I want to use one of the old toys to vac form the sort of fuselage section and, you know, make it look like the original toy.
Yeah. Have you put cameras on any of these and recorded
all
video?
These are really, really light, so I'm just doing line of sight flying. I have, if you remember, one of the very first Star Wars things I did was the speeder bikes, and those had the FPV on them. So that was cool, but that was probably 10 years ago now. So
every gram matters.
Every gram matters at this size, and it's just fun. Like I like just being able to see them in the air.
Oh my God, and they're delighting everyone here.
Thanks.
Yeah, Adam, so good to see you. So good to catch up with you and check out some of your latest builds. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks for talking.
Thank you so much for watching that video. Your support allows us to make more of this great content. If you'd like to help us on a deeper level even, head over to tested-store.com because we've got stickers. Who doesn't love stickers? Our anime-inspired Tested logo in Japanese. Follow the process, not the plan. It's not a process. It's not a problem to solve, it's a process to manage. Other aphorisms that have come from my mouth. And we have just made a full set of our demerit badges in sticker form. So you can cover your toolbox with all of your screw-ups and celebrate it with other makers. Thank you guys so much. See you next time.